Hello, I'm Latia James, Brand Strategy Director at Heritage Digital. When disaster strikes, seconds matter. That's what we're here to talk about today, disaster recovery plan. We have one of the leading experts, our very own CEO, Marty Parker. He brings over 3 decades of experience with just this type of thing. Marty, can you please explain what disaster recovery is and why it's essential for businesses of all sizes?
Disaster recovery, businesses' way of preparing for events that could be detrimental to their survival. Giving you an example, when I was at the hospital, one of the things that we always had to do was to be prepared for hurricanes. Hurricanes were a big event that could easily impact the hospital's ability to provide patient care. One of the little things we found in the process of going through our testing of our disaster recovery was it wasn't enough for us to say we've got all of these engineer guys that were going to be picking up people and bringing doctors and nurses in after the event has occurred. We had to make sure that they all had gas in their trucks. It was just an oversight that nobody really had documented. Lo and behold, one of our engineers didn't have gas. And guess what? All of the gas stations were out of power just like we were. Well, now we weren't because the hospital was on backup, but we didn't have the gas in his truck and he couldn't get gas in his truck from where he was in order to pick up people and bring them into the hospital. Those are the types of things that we try to prepare for in the process of building out a disaster recovery plan. Obviously, a disaster recovery plan is all inclusive. We're looking at more than just the doctors getting into the facility. In that case, if we go to a manufacturing facility, in hurricane example, then you've got the shipping department. How do they get the products out? How do we get the raw materials in to produce our products for our customers? Those are the types of things that you have to prepare for in a disaster recovery plan.
What are the most critical first steps a business should take to begin its disaster recovery planning?
To make the decision that they need a disaster recovery plan, documentation and actual testing of the documentation. Once you're done with it, you start. Don't assume that you're going to think of everything. It is too critical of an event for you to not make the right decisions. And the way you can make better decisions is to have a plan that you're executing. The disaster recovery plan is not going to take into account any and every event that could occur. But by documenting a plan for one event, you can build the processes such that if it throws you a curveball and you're having to deal with something over here that you weren't prepared for, if you don't have documentation on, you've got a process that you will go through because you've done it before and you documented it along the way. So you're applying the same principles that you worked through in the process of building your plan. You work through those principles will guide you through the event. You will be much better prepared and you will have a much better chance of survival. I often use ransomware as my example. Statistics of 2023. I don't have them for 2024 yet, but companies that were hit by ransomware attack, and that would be a disaster that you would need a plan for. Small to mid-sized companies, 100 users or less. We're talking about 75% of them are not here anymore.
Wow.
Ransomware is real. It is disastrous. It absolutely will destroy your business. You have to be prepared for it. From a ransomware standpoint, some of the things that businesses need to be prepared for is they need to have offsite backups. They need to be gap protected so that the bad actors cannot access their backups. That's one step that's an easy thing to accomplish, but it's something that most people don't necessarily think about. They'll have their backups on another drive on their network. Well, 1Password gets them access to all of those things and they're in. It's really not enough. Even if they're different passwords, you're not really protected because unless you're stringent about the way that you're managing your cache on your PC, those passwords are still there and the bad actors know how to get them. You've got to have a gap that they can't jump in order to protect yourself. That gap has to be off-site and it has to be third party. It cannot be within your own network.
I know you mentioned ransomware here as well. Is it safe to say that the disaster recovery is a part of the incident response plan?
The incident response plan would be a part of the disaster recovery. The disaster
Okay.
recovery plan is your overall umbrella. If you're a business and you're sitting there thinking of how things would impact you from the disaster of a ransomware attack, you would look at it from a disaster recovery plan. How does a ransomware attack impact my shipping department? How does it impact my HR department? And you go down the list and you build, each one of those would have their own incident response plan. Shipping would have an incident response plan that would not be the same as the IT department. They're dependent on each other because, shipping is going to be supplying hardware out that they need to replace as a result. The disaster recovery plan is the overall umbrella, and then you've got the incident response plans that will take care of the departments underneath that feed up to that disaster recovery plan.
Got it. So you don't want one without the other. They work hand in hand.
Right. Yes.
Thank you. Last, from your experience, what makes a disaster recovery plan truly effective versus one that just looks good on paper?
I can write a disaster recovery plan for just about any business because all businesses basically operate the same. They ship product or they provide services, but they all invoice their customers and they all order things. I can write a disaster recovery plan that will cover those businesses from a look good, got all the T's crossed and the I's dotted. The only problem is it doesn't have your customer's information or your vendor's information, or none of the things that are pertaining to you are actually in that document. So it's not going to work when the event occurs and you say, okay, now I need to call my customers. Wait a minute, I don't have John's number. How do I get in touch with John? It might look pretty on paper, but it's not going to be where the paper is written on.
Another way I'm hearing what you're saying is not only do we need to know where to find that information, but we need to test it as well.
Absolutely. Yeah. And by testing it, you're going to find that you're going to uncover things in the process of a test that you didn't even think about in the process of writing it down. The event where I was talking about having the gas available, that was one of those rabbit holes that we ran down and realized that, wait a minute, there's another step in this process. We've got to make sure that they've got the gas in their tank. Those are the types of things that you will uncover in the process of going through a test. It's easy to test the things that you know about. If you get 10 people in a room and let them start actually acting out an event in the room, you will find out that they're not going to do what you're expecting them to do. There are the things that you need to address because everybody's looking at that event in a different way in the process of running a test.
For those businesses that may already have a disaster recovery or incident response plan in place, how often would you say that they should test, and how exactly could Heritage come in and maybe help them test, refine it, things of that nature?
From a testing standpoint, it needs to be tested every 6 months at least. If you wait and do it annually, statistics show us that you'll never follow through the things that you identify in your test that need to be changed. You won't follow through on them, and you won't actually test those things because there'll be something else that you want to test the next year. If you're doing an annual test, you'll find something else that's more important to test because of the situation you're in at the time. If you do it every 6 months, you will literally go back and retest on what you've just done and add another thing to it. You'll get into a rhythm. It's an evergreen tree, and it requires a lot of effort on your part to keep it green. If you get into that rhythm, then you will find that you're fixing things and identifying things in the process that just keeps feeding on itself. So I would recommend highly that at least every 6 months that you run a test and review your plan.
Thank you, Marty, for taking the time to answer these questions from our audience today. If you are a business who either already has a plan or does want to talk with Heritage about how to refine it or test it, please reach out to us at our website, heritagedigital.com, or call us directly at 843-699-1001. Thank you. We'll talk to you next time.